Okay, so finally have everything we need to get the radiator done, fan, get everything else installed. I have the radiator neck, cap mount, whatever this is. So mount it somewhere in that neighborhood off to the side. And then I have a real low profile fan I got from Durali. It's 10 inch, it's rated for 800 and change CFM, so it should be enough. I'm just gonna run one, maybe off center to this side a little bit, or wherever I have space for it. I already checked, it's plenty thin to fit. It's gonna be a tight squeeze, as you can tell, but I'm just gonna try and, keep in mind I'm gonna have to route a belt and probably change a belt with the fan installed down the road, and so we'll get that taken care of. Get a second radiator hose run from here down to the bottom, and we should be all set for the cooling system. Alright, so as you can see, I got the reservoir finished here. Just pretty simple square plate. Used hole saw to, saw a hole. And I wish I would have thought of that for these, because it would have been a lot easier than using the cone bit like I did. I'm just not the smartest. But yeah, so as you can see here, I already got part of the bracket installed. It's just a piece of angle iron that I clearanced in the middle and on the edge, and it's going to go across. Alright, so it's going to kind of sit in here like so. Kind of go across. It's going to go under the other support that I already have, because it's going to sit almost directly on the radiator. I'm going to space it just a little bit. You can see I have, look at it from here, the radiator kind of raises up, comes across for that one of the hoses and for the neck, and then it comes down after that mount. So I just cut out a relief for that, so that way I can have this piece of angle iron sit down closer to the radiator and have this come over on top. And then I just had to cut one more relief down in there, so that way it can sit behind this bracket that I already have. And so I'm just gonna get a little spacer welded in there so it supports it on this side, have the bar go all the way across, and then I'm gonna just weld a tab on it to tie into that bolt hole, and then something similar for that, kind of like what I did on that side. So that way this top bar has a total of 3 bolts in it, and 2 of them will be pretty big, and it will be pretty secure because the box is pretty heavy and it's gonna have a bunch of coolant in it. And then I think I'm just gonna mount the fan, come up with a bracket to just mount it directly to the radiator, so that way it has the rubber insulators also, so if the fan has a little vibration, it'll help keep it quiet and keep from feeling the vibration inside the car or truck. So yeah, just got to get that done, and then we'll start I'm going to try and only make the lower radiator hose 2 pieces with 1 coupler in the middle, because I don't want a whole bunch of connections, because every connection is a possible leak. And so we'll catch up after I have this all kind of welded in place. Okay, so got everything all finished up here for the radiator top bracket with the reservoir. Ended up not using either of these bolt holes. They're just a little bit too low. If this one was here, we'd be fine. So I just used the one here to line up. You can kind of see the hole back there. And then the crossbar with the relief for the radiator neck. Here's for the mount. And I just tied these 2 brackets together. I ended up not needing a spacer. Once I had it all kind of where I wanted it, those 2 lined up close enough to I was able to just kind of stick them together. The hole for the radiator mount, the insulator bushing, I guess, and then one more bolt hole over here. Down the road, I might end up putting one, like making like a hole right here or somewhere kind of similar, just to give me a little bit more reinforcement from flex like that, but it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad. Now we're moving on to the fan. So I have the radiator completely out, and at first I thought about mounting it kind of off to the side over here up in the corner, because then if it wasn't enough, it would leave me enough space for a little 8-inch fan over here, this being a 10-inch. But I mean, if I'm gonna have to go and add another fan later, I'm gonna have to add to the bracket, so it's not a bad time to just restart. So I figure best case scenario with this one is front and center, and then I have it raised up just a little bit. Well, not a little bit, I have pushed all the way to the top, because this part of the radiator is actually blocked down here, or it's going to be. It's mounted in the truck, because the radiator hole here is not very high, and then we have the bar right here, and that's blocking it. So I just get the fan to actually be centered in front of the hole, which you can see this hole isn't, it's not a big hole for a radiator. Not a lot of airflow opportunity. It does kind of have these holes that go up and over to help get to the top of the radiator, and then I figure I can go and put some speed holes in here if we need to, if it's overheating, but I suspect we're going to have enough cooling. It's just a little 4-cylinder aluminum block. It's not pulling a whole lot of weight, so it shouldn't put out a whole lot of heat, but I guess only time will tell. To get the spacing correct for my radiator bracket, I just took a piece of scrap metal and set it across, so it gives me like a nice flat mount for the fan. I just straightened it out at the top up here, and then I'm going to use these two here probably, since they're already on the radiator, and then probably make something that's going to match up to this tab, and just kind of have a Y go up, and then kind of over and over. So that way it's just mounted directly to the radiator, and we'll worry about getting a connector put on here later. So once we get the bracket done, we'll catch up there and see how it fits. Alright, so as you can see, we got the fan in here. Instead of the bracket like I was mentioning, I decided to go with a plate just because it looked easier, and I had some scrap metal that was going to fit perfect. Well, it's not scrap metal, but a cut piece of metal. This is basically the template that I used, just made it out of cardboard, traced around the fan. Obviously the fan, the mounting holes, it has a couple of risers going up to it, or whatever you want to call them, so that's what those cutouts are for. And radiator hole, or hole mount, radiator hole mount, radiator neck relief, and then there's also the overflow somewhere in that area. As you can see, there's the neck relief. Just below here, mount for the fan. Got to cut that. Here's the like rise I was talking about. The only thing is, I need to still do the lower plate, and clearance is, it's actually hitting the pulley. So it's, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's outwards a little bit, and I want to bring it in. It's even, so everything clears, but just barely. So went ahead, hooked it up to a test battery, get a decent amount of airflow through the grill. It's super loud, so definitely need to get a pulse width modulator to control the fan. So that way when I don't need full blast, it will turn it down to 20, 30, 40, whatever percent, and cut down on the volume. So it's probably going to be the loudest part of the truck if I have a moderate exhaust on here, which is what I'm planning on doing. So we will we'll catch up when we get to the bottom piece there. And that should be it for the cooling system, besides getting the radiator hose cut, but I already got the pieces I need, so. Alright, so got a cardboard bracket for the bottom part here, kind of cut out. Yeah, I mean, you can tell just Coke case, thin cardboard works really well. This, beer cases, whatever. Using shipping boxes ends up being kind of hard to cut. And then that's the bracket I made from it. Obviously trimmed down some excess like over here, and I think I trimmed some down over here too, but I mean it's basically the same thing. I got these little tabs hanging off the radiator, so I bent some tabs on the bottom of the plate 90 degrees so I could get some bolt holes through there, and then cut a rough half circle for the fan, and 2 more holes for the bolts, and it's in there pretty good. I got this little off center, but I'm not going to redo it. So now we just, obviously got to paint it up as well, so we just got to get it all mounted again, and then I'm going to cut those hoses down so we can get the lower radiator hose taken care of, get the reservoir in, and then we'll hook it up for a quick airflow test, just kind of see what we're dealing with, and then that'll be it. Next time we'll be doing the batteries, hopefully getting those mounted up and starting with that. Okay, so we got everything mounted. You can see we got the rear radiator hose, the front upper. I got that one connected down there, and it kind of loops around coming up. I didn't connect them because the diameter is just a little bit too big, and it's not fitting right on this side. You can kind of see it looks a little wonky right about there. So I'm gonna take it with me to the auto parts store, see if I can match one up that's gonna be a little bit smaller diameter and have close to the same bends that I need. And then this is actually the same part number as this radiator hose back here. And then it's just same thing, just like a 90-degree down. And then I'm just gonna, I'm gonna get a better coupler than this, but something similar to this to just kind of like shove in one side, shove in the other, clamp it down, be good to go. And then have a little battery here set, well, not a little battery, but a battery set up here so we can test the fan, because I'm a little bit worried that it's not going to be enough airflow. And I tried cleaning the dirt out of the radiator, but all the fins are super corroded and they just started to disintegrate. So the radiator's kind of clogged also. And I mean, I got this as a test one, so I wasn't worried about beating it up while I was building around it. And then once I was done, I was going to get a new one that was just new and not doing that. So just keep that in mind. It is restricting a little bit of the airflow, and this fan's super loud, so let's see how this goes. So I know with the old mechanical fan clutches, if it holds a rag to the grill, you're usually in pretty good shape. Let me see here, hang on. Alright, so as you can see, fan has no issue holding a rag to the grill, even with the big gap up here, and the clogged radiator fins. So we should be okay. Still wish I had a little bit more radiator or a little bit more fan, but we just don't have the space. So that barely fits as is. And when I originally mounted the engine, I was planning on using the original water outlet on the back, which sticks out about that far. And when I placed it about as far back as I could, the shifter lined up just about where I wanted it. So as you can see, if I slid the engine back any further, I'd have to cut the shifter hole and relocate it. It's already pretty close to the seat, so I don't know if I would have enough room to get into like second, fourth, and reverse. So, but yeah, that's the cooling system pretty much done. Just got to change that lower hose, and that'll be it. Next time you see the Courier, it'll be we'll be mounting some batteries to it. Like I said, my goal is to kind of try to mount them right in there. I got a couple 24 series that are just like that much too big, so I'm gonna go see if I can't trade them out for something just a little bit smaller and see how far that gets us. So.